And we're on.
Morning, everybody. This is John Spielkel from GAI Insights, accompanied by our team of AI analysts. We have some fantastic material we're going to review this morning, and today's effort is sponsored by Custom GPT, a wonderful product that allows you to build your own chatbot at any time. Now I'm going to turn it over to David, who's going to be our host for today. David?
All right. Thanks, John. So we have, as John said, a good set of articles for discussion today. We will look at a tool that is meant to help clinicians diagnose disease and create treatment plans. We're going to look at Grok, not Elon's Grok, but the Grok with a Q that's kind of set a buzz in Twitter. And we'll look at a way that the NBA is using AI already, which I love. They're always very innovative, and a couple more. So first, we're going to start with something that also set social media buzz a few days ago, and we wanted to just highlight it still today and have a bit of discussion about it, which is Air Canada's chatbot GAF. Sorry, I stole your thunder on Kajan introducing it. So we will just jump right in. And I think we're starting with Adam on this one.
You know, I rated this important. I mean, it's a specific case in a specific place, yet I think it's a short article and it's a good cautionary tale. What's interesting is, so basically this guy had to travel for bereavement, and he contacted the airlines through a chatbot, and the chatbot he could get a refund. And it turned out that actually wasn't the correct policy, and the tribunal saying, well, the AI said it, so you got to honor it, right? And I think this was actually in 2022, November 2022. So debatably, this was before large language models even, but it's still setting a precedent, and I think it's a good cautionary tale, and it's a short article, so it's probably worth their time to have a read of it when they can. I'd say it's important.
You know, I'll add to it. I also rated it important because I thought it was interesting that the company was like, well, you should have gone to the website. The website is what has the real information. And the court is like, hey, why should that be the customer's responsibility? It is your data. You created this chatbot. You need to make sure that the data that chatbot is querying is correct. So yeah, I do think that this is going to set a precedence, and it's very good for our audience, our readers, to be aware of this as they start looking into, you know, customer service applications and using AI for that.
Yeah, I would say important almost for the opposite reason. It's a very specific case in a very specific locale. I don't think there's any precedent setting here at all. Second, this is $450 that they owed the customer really anyway. The policy, there is a bereavement policy. The only question was whether you had to do it as you purchased the ticket or through reimbursement. So the chatbot was actually more or less right, just wrong in timing. And the company was just being Ebenezer Scrooge and just arguing that he should have done it up front, and niggling over nickels and dimes. It's not a lot of money. It's a single ruling. I do think it's important because these rulings are going to be important over time, but there's going to need to be a lot of them in a lot of different places.
Yeah, why important and not essential?
Because it's a one place, small ruling over a small amount of money, and the chatbot wasn't even wrong. If it'll be interesting, you know, I think some enterprising lawyer who wants to get famous should go with the fellow out in California who got the $1 deal on the Silverado or whatever it was from the car company. And now if the judge upheld that and they had to give him a $100,000 or whatever, $70 or $100,000 car for $1, that would make some news.
All right, I guess we'll go with important. I was feeling essential, but I'm clearly outnumbered. So
I could actually, even as you said it, David, I could be swayed. Michael Novak had a comment there as well. He said, if this was a human agent, would it even have made the news? Right. So in some ways, I think that would make it more important news, to show that they're really not treating these things the same, and that there is a lot of focus on these things getting it right. And especially as short as it is, if I were an exec and someone said, hey, what are your chatbots potentially promising someone? I have a friend who's in Canada, and he was like, maybe I should go socially engineer the Amazon chatbots to give me $1 million in credits, right? He's a Canadian. He could point to this as precedent. The companies might want to be having a second look at not even large language models, right? But just the AI agents that they already have out there in chatbots, and look at what these things are doing and think twice.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, the most interesting, the most amusing thing about this was that apparently the chatbot's taken offline. And so scapegoating apparently applies to non-human entities as well.
Yeah, I thought the language that Air Canada used, saying that this was a separate entity, was kind of, I know they didn't mean it to be that it's like actually a being, but that's what it sounds like. I'm going to go essential. Michael is debating me, but I think it's essential because of the message, not necessarily the instance, right? The message to the AI leader to make sure that, everything is tight around their chatbots, and they're going to be held, their company's going to be held responsible. And it's the AI leader's job that will be on the line, right, if this happens. So we're going to go essential, and we will move on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is from Glass Health. So they have launched a new clinical reference chatbot called Glass Consult.
Yeah, so I took this one. I had assigned it to Paul, but he had to duck out. I think, just to clarify, I don't think the tool is necessarily new. It says that it got some kind of upgrade, which never really said what the upgrade was. So bad, bad Twitter post. But I would mark this as optional, just because we've talked about a lot of tools that are starting to come to market to assist physicians. It is interesting that this one's specifically helping with diagnosis, as opposed to some of the others, which are helping with just like assisting on making reports and stuff like that. Although this one does that too. I did some research on it, and it does provide like a full clinical plan if you ask it to do so. Also, just of note that Y Combinator is a backer, and we know that they tend to have a decent hit rate. But curious, anybody else feel anything but optional or have any other thoughts?
I think
it's
it's
important for help. Sorry, Tim. I'll be quick. I gave it important for those who are in healthcare, right? I do think that this is a relevant use case for them, and it shows really the power of what AI can do in that space, but optional for the rest. I also, I tried it. I signed up. I went in there. I'm not a clinician, so I did say I was not a clinician. It did ask me why are you trying to sign up? So I had to explain that. So I think that they have some levels of controls to make sure that the tool is used by people who have a medical background, right? Not just us. It's not intended for the regular user. But I thought it was helpful. I just put a couple of things, just like, oh, if I had XYZ and blah, 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 what would you recommend? And just like the video shows, it's you need to have some kind of medical background to understand it. But I thought it was quick, easy to use. So I can see these type of tools being very helpful, in healthcare. So that's why I gave it an important for that field.
Yeah, I think I would agree in general, optional for the broader population, but I think it's actually essential for healthcare and clinical professionals because in that industry, because this is the one of the real crossing the Rubicon moments, because they're claiming they can do what's called differential diagnosis. That is one thing that in general, everybody has done this about and said, nope, you can't do differential diagnosis, which is basically the doctor making a final diagnosis, particularly for complex cases. I believe they still want a human in the loop. So you could argue, well, maybe it's not that different, but they're claiming they've got effectively a RAG system doing differential diagnosis for complex cases and then treatment plans and draft notes. If that proves to be accurate, which is the big deal, then that'll be a revolution in this area.
All right. So interesting development, essential for healthcare industry, but we'll go optional for everybody else. What's next?
Okay. The next one is an article listing out the shift from LLM models to compound AI systems. The article suggests that we can achieve a lot more using compound AI systems rather than just large language models.
All right. I thought this was a nice piece. Tim, what did you think?
Yeah, this was great. A nice survey and something shameless plug that I've written about on my Substack and LinkedIn newsletters, that at the end of the day, the systems that are really going to be powerful are going to be combinations of tools, combinations of reasoning tools, various kinds of tools, and large language models. And effectively, that's what this article is saying. Some of the tools, they sort of are more narrow-minded. Narrow-minded is the wrong word. They are more precise in terms of defining their tools. So they talk about tools like chain of thought, which are applied within an LLM model, as well as symbolic reasoning tools and other tools that are applied outside and added to an LLM model. But it was a nice survey article, and I completely agree that we're going to go see various kinds of combinations of tools at the end of the day.
So sorry, what was your rating? Important?
Oh, sorry. So I think it's important for AI leaders to understand this so that they don't get snookered by various vendors trying to sell them their particular version of truth and beauty.
I was curious, could one of you explain what it was sharing about the MMLU test that Gemini took and how it operated? I don't know if you got into that.
Yeah, well, it was just saying, you know, Google's getting a worse and worse reputation for their sort of, you know, you could call it deceptive advertising. It probably doesn't meet the legal definition, but they called they inferenced, as it's the technical term, they called the model like 32 different times using various kinds of prompts. So it wasn't just like, tell me about this disease I have in one prompt, or, you know, write a brief history of the United States in one prompt. It was led through many, many prompts in order to do well on these benchmarks. These are exam benchmarks effectively for these large language models. We could have a whole nother discussion on whether those exam benchmarks are worth the computer bits they're made out of, but that's another discussion. And they're used widely, and they're not completely useless. So, so it's more a matter of they sort of, you know, did they cheat, if you will, in reporting their performance as being better than ChatGPT-4. When they did similar things with ChatGPT-4, ChatGPT-4 turned out to be slightly better than Gemini. So an exercise for a reader.
David, just it stands for a mixture of multiple choice and language understanding. So that's just what kind of benchmark test it is. It's testing the language understanding and multiple choice, answering multiple choice questions. So it's just how it performed on that benchmark test is basically what you're testing there.
Okay.
You know, you know, for me and Tim, I mean, this is kind of like a return to the past. Because if you go back, in the AI wave of the 80s, you know, it was more symbolic based, but it was all about multiple, you know, models working together. There's a fantastic book by Marvin Minsky called The Society of Mind, where he talks about what's that? He talks about the you know, the mind as a set of cooperating, very different kinds of processors. And you know, I think it's anyway. I mean, Minsky got neural nets wrong, but you know, he got that. I think he got that right. So anyway, it's good to see that, you know, the frustrating thing is this: they can learn a lot about how it was constructed before just by reading the past, but it's so much more fun to reinvent what's already known.
Yep. And the other thing I would add, it's reason it's fairly important for AI leaders, is this will make the environments more complex, and you'll need to deal with that. So operations, when you have multiple tools interacting, it's just more complicated, and you've got to deal with it.
Yeah, I rate it as essential for that reason, that, you know, they have to understand where the architecture is going.
Yeah, I marked it important for our executives, essential for our developers. But as we're discussing this, I'm really thinking it's essential for executives and developers, because it's calling out. Yeah, I love this chart. Thank you, Ankash. It's calling out also, you know, many of our executives have asked, hey, what are the skills that I need to look for in the future? And there's really almost this area of AI architecture, right? Like enterprise architecture back in the past, like AI systems architecture. And they talk a little bit about it towards the end of what are some of the emerging trends. You're going to have AI ops. You're going to have, all these other different areas. So I do think it's an easy read. I mean, it's a little bit, teeny bit long, not too long, but I do think it's an essential piece for our audience.
So
Yeah,
I'll just jump in if I may. Ankash, thanks for scrolling down a little more. These are all examples of existing compound systems. So people need to understand that ChatGPT Plus is a compound system, right? It has the large language model, but it has web browser, it has a code interpreter, and it has an image generator, right? We're already seeing these compound systems, and at the very least, it's important that people understand this concept. And with this article laying it out so well, I could certainly be convinced of essential reading as well.
Yeah, I felt it was essential. Our AI leader is kind of in charge and overseeing this architecture and the systems, right? So I would think that they, might want to just take a look at this and brush up if they hadn't already been thinking in this direction. So we will go with essential on this one, and we will move on. What's next?
Okay, next one is from NBA. So NBA has launched nb.ai, a generative AI tool to personalize the viewing experience.
Yeah, could you play the video actually as we're chatting, Kaj, maybe with the sound off, because it'll demonstrate some of this. And I mean, Jesus, when I see these guys next to somebody else, it's when you realize how tall they are.
Well, Wembley's a giant. He's
incredible.
The tallest player in the NBA.
John, what did you think about this?
I was reminded of my Irish grandmother saying, "It's a long run for a short slide." I made it optional. The idea is there. The way they've used it is borders on trivial. I mean, you get compared to what's available right now. So anyway, I think I'd say it's optional. It's an obvious thing that we're going to take popular, that AI and interaction and customization is going to come to all kinds of anything that is watched, especially things that are watched a lot, like things that are global, especially like the NBA. So I'd say it's optional, unimpressive in terms of how they've done it. It's the right idea. We'll get there.
Well, I might debate one point on that. Like, yes, like they've done some things that are not, maybe super valuable to the plan. But if I understood correctly, and I think they're showing it there, this is translating the game in real time into this cartoon version.
Yes, I know.
I
didn't find that impressive, but
you're tough to impress, John. I thought, it was a fairly impressive way to use it. As I said, maybe not like incredibly valuable to the fan, but I hadn't really thought that we could do that in real time with video just yet. But curious to hear anybody else's take on it. I still didn't think it was important. I thought it was optional, but I was impressed.
I'll tell you what GPT-4 told me, which I think is a good take, though, is that for executives, especially those in the fields of sports media and entertainment, this is relevant as it showcases how AI can be utilized to create more engaging and customized content. And it's a really good example of that, and the potential for this technology. It could set a new standard across sports media, and that's significant. But in other entertainment and live event areas as well. So that's why it might be important, but I was on the fence and leaning towards optional as well.
This idea of AI allowing us to personalize experiences, like in this article and in the next one with the banking, I mean, that is definitely a trend that I think we need to be aware of. But I mark this as optional as well.
All right, we'll go optional.
Yeah, we prefer the scary part of this, if you want to think about it as more than optional, is for society as a whole, because we're preferring more and more playground worlds as opposed to the real world. So even in sports, which is thought of as a play world to escape the real world, now we have to have cartoons to escape even the play world.
Hey, the world is increasingly a mess. I mean, I'll take a virtual world every now and then to
Well, you won't do much in the real world if that's your attitude.
All right, we'll go optional. I will note that the NBA is usually, out of all the major sports leagues, at least in the US, on the forefront of technology adoption, which is great and is one of the reasons why it has like shot up in popularity over the last couple of decades, I would argue. So we'll go optional.
Just to clarify, though, that thing where it was like animating the game and changing the style of it, that's not the core features of this either. It gets into some more details with regards to the fact that you could have tailored highlights based on your favorite teams and players, stats overlaying the game, and even personalized commentary, right? And those are all things that are going to be really valuable for a sports enthusiast while they're watching a game.
Yeah, and as I demonstrated, it does translation in real time too, which again, like helps them reach other markets. So it's definitely.
Optional.
What's that?
I said cool and optional.
Yes, cool and optional. Okay, I think we are moving on to Westpac.
Yes. So this one from Westpac highlights how Westpac is using Gen AI to speed up software development and how it is training a lot of engineers in generative AI.
Tanya.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So on this one, I marked it optional. If you're in banking, it's a very, very short article. You might want to read it, but I didn't think there was anything like huge coming out that we are not aware of. So they talk about, like Ankash said, that they've spent quite a bit in training. I think they said 800 engineers on how to use generative AI in their coding, and that allows them to write 22% more lines of code per day. So, we know that Gen AI is gonna help increase efficiency, and especially in coding. We've had those conversations before in these daily reviews. The other thing that he talked about, I thought this was kind of interesting, coming from a bank and being aware of the importance of ethical use of AI. And this bank is really proactively, I should say, engaging with industry leaders and with universities to make sure that AI is being developed and used in an ethically and responsible manner. So I thought that was interesting, and that they're putting guardrails around it. And then towards the end, it talks about the CTO saying, "Hey, 2024 is really the year where we're going to see intelligent banking really taking hold." And I went to another interview of his because I was like, well, they're not telling me much about what intelligent banking is. And it's back to this, personalizing, right, your banking experience. So today, many of us are used to, getting your credit card reports, and then some credit cards will break it out, right? Oh, you ate out, you use this for gas, even your bank statements sometimes will be broken up by different categories. This is going the next step of, hey, not just giving you where you spent it, but hey, based on your spending patterns, maybe you can save a little bit here. And if you save it, maybe you can invest it over here. So making all of these tools that in a way have been available, connecting them a little bit better and making it more, the interaction a little bit more conversational, I guess. So, that was an interesting part of this. And then in that other article that this one referenced, I liked how he explained, the CTO explained that, we're going from AI where human is still in the loop. I think he called it hybrid AI, to autonomous AI, where, AI is now making decisions and automating workflows. Again, we've had those discussions in prior articles, but I thought it was interesting that he brought it up as well. So in short, I think it's optional. But if you're in finance, read it. It's not more than a 2-minute read.
All right, I'm actually going to have to keep us moving just because we have 6 minutes left and we have one article. So we'll go optional on that one and move to the final piece here. And thank you, Tanya. That was all really interesting information. Okay.
Okay. So this is the new Grok AI model, and this is not Elon Musk's Grok model. So what is differentiating about this Grok AI model is that it is quite faster than other LLMs or other ChatGPT oriented models in the market, and they are doing something different as well. So they are not using GPUs for this. They have developed something called LPU, which is a language processing model, and they are using it to make the inference faster.
That's right. Adam, what did you think about that? Adam, did he get frozen? All right,
It's pretty cool. I would certainly say it's important. Hang on, am I back?
you're back.
Mic check. Yeah, thanks. That's Australian internet for you. Happens about 2-3 times a session. I think this is really cool, and I would say I would rate it as important. This is a new architecture in chipsets, right? And it's one that's going to help alleviate the bottleneck that we're seeing while also increasing efficiency. And they're not new to the game. I looked a little bit under it, and they have published articles from 2020 where they were developing this stuff in Silicon Valley. So it's starting to come to market, and we're starting to see that it'll actually make a difference. In their demo website, you can drop in either the Llama 2 70 billion parameter model or the Mixtral, which is the mixture of experts, which is 4 by 7 billion. So the fact that this new architecture can just drop in and work with various open source models is really powerful, and I think an important thing to understand in the bigger scope of things. It's not essential. I don't think anyone's going to be making buying decisions or changing their approach necessarily at this point, and I'm not clear how many of them are really available at this point on this architecture. But I also think it's something similar to what Meta announced they were building with some of their new chipsets as well, where these TPUs. So I would rate it as important.
Any other thoughts?
I agree.
You're on mute, John.
Chips are gonna be flooding the market over the next 5 years with various approaches, and this one certainly benchmarks very well. Just takes time to see. They've got 2 models done. They're, again, the hard part when you really get down to it is the CUDA software that NVIDIA produces. So saying it's compatible, quote unquote, is the first order, but it's not really compatible unless it's CUDA compatible, which it's not. So the question is, how many developers are going to go away from NVIDIA to use these architectures? And the answer so far has been none. Now we'll see as these chips become more widely available, but it's not entirely clear how well they're going to do. Even this one has, a couple of orders of magnitude almost of increased performance, so may attract a lot of attention. We'll see.
Yeah, Michael Novak in the comments is saying, hey, look, for stuff with low latency, they're going to have to go this way, or not necessarily have to, but may go this way. I don't know. I'm just, I would definitely rate it important, if not essential, because I think that this is the first time in a long time that we're going back down into the hardware architecture on a regular basis and having, competing. And I hear what you're saying about CUDA and, the developer community, Tim, but, we're early innings here, right? We got
yeah. I think it's quite possible, and actually, this company, of course, has another ace up its sleeve in that they may make quite a bit of money from X to pay for the rights to the name.
That's right. That's right. All right, we're coming up against time. We'll go important on this one to keep it on the radar. It could become essential eventually. And Ankaj, do you have our summary slide today? We could finish up briefly. All right, so we got some reading today. A couple essentials, Grok important, 3 optionals. We'll of course send our newsletter out that includes the rationales that we discussed today for our ratings. If anybody out there wants to be signed up for that, shoot us a message. And we'll wrap it up because we've got about 20 seconds before we get cut off today. So we had a lively discussion. So thanks everybody for joining out there, and we will see you tomorrow.